Welcome to the Kent Lapp Podcast.
I was curious with your role a year and a month as Director for Community Manual. I mean, communication in general, which is kind of what we're talking about here. I mean, that's important if you're going to be a Director for Community, obviously. Have you noticed some things that don't work so good or that do work that you've noticed, or have you learned things about the human nature since you're in that role at Emmanuel?
It's an interesting thing because church is very optional. So communication from a church, it feels like a perpetual challenge because people don't have to read it. They don't have to care. They don't have to pay attention. And you don't want to flip the other way where you're kind of gimmicky and trying to get people's attention, kind of overselling or over anything. So trying to create a context where people think your communication is worthy of their attention is hard. So COVID exacerbated that because we didn't have certain options for communication. Everything boiled down to the digital.
Right.
So, I mean, you can phone call, but if you're trying to, connect with 100 people, a phone call is not very efficient. And so it's emails, it's text messages, it's videos that you're then trying to communicate to people through social media or through an email. And you just end up in this little digital circle. But if somebody doesn't want to open it, they never know what's going on. Mm-hmm. And so that has been a challenge, just in terms of people's psyche. And COVID has also made people, I think, real tired of all digital communication. Mm-hmm. We're addicted to our phones, but we're also real sick of them.
Yeah, it's true.
And so, responses to emails are worse. Open rates on things haven't gotten any better. Or there's just a fatigue of that kind of communication. So then you end up in the place where you're like, well, let's try to figure out how to communicate with them in person. It might not be safe to gather them in person. If we do, how do we get them there without communicating digitally?
Sure.
How do you invite somebody if you can't get a hold of them?
Yep.
So those kinds of things have created a cycle of occasional communication frustrations.
Yeah.
And then I think figuring out how people respond to different things. I prefer very succinct communications.
Yeah, same.
I want bullet points.
Yeah, me too. Life should just be bullet points, honestly.
Yeah, just especially if it's about details on something.
Yeah.
Just be like, here are the details on this event, and then just bullet points. And then if you want to write like a lengthy thing at the bottom that's
after
like, here's
the
how
bullet points,
sure. And I feel like a lot of communication is a little bit like going to like a food blog. Like, I just want the recipe for the red beans and rice, but I have to read through the person's life story and how it connects to their Enneagram number and why their children love this and how they tried it 4 times and it failed. I don't care about any of that.
Yeah.
I just want the recipe. So my inclination is just the recipe.
Yep.
But a lot of people really like the stuff.
It's true.
They like the story. They like the kind of written in, whether it's encouragement or what feels a little bit like puff piece to me is not puff piece to a lot of people. It's meaningful.
Yep.
So I need to figure out how to communicate in a way that's meaningful to others.
Right.
Not just what I would prefer.
Yeah.
And that can be a challenge.
And that's the trick when it's something like church too, because you got to figure out how to best communicate to the mass, because you're not going to write an email for every single person. Yeah. So knowing this email is going to go out to some people who prefer bullet points. Some people are going to prefer much more information. You got to figure out the most effective way to craft one email or one message for everyone, and kind of figure out the most effective way. It's going to be less than ideal for some, and less than ideal for others. It's just the way it's going to, and then others is going to be like right on. But that's just the way communication works. But yeah, I'm just communication in a church setting seems hard, because then you also don't want to, even if you're meeting in person, I know Ray and TJ are very careful about this. They don't want all the announcements across the pulpit, and I think that's very, very wise. So you still got to figure out, even if you're meeting in person, how you're going to communicate some things. Yeah.